So this is a 50K or 15K bounty builder tournament on PokerStars. It's the entry level tournament. I just feel like playing. So it's after league registration, a couple minutes after league registration. There's no bounties, so it's not as fun. And it's the entry level tournament. So let's see what they have. Like they make calls, well, so he did at least have an open, but they make some pretty loose calls until they're in the money. Not so much after league registration, but the play isn't as strong. Like any tournament, right? Once you're in the money, the tournament is harder. And then as you approach the final table, it gets even harder. And then final table is the hardest, right? So if you're in a tournament, you want to try to be average stack. If it's a bounty tournament, you want to be able to get as many bounties at your table as possible, right? So your goal is to be the chip leader at your table. So in a non-bounty tournament, your goal should tentatively be the chip leader at the table, so you can't get busted in one hand. You don't need to be the chip leader in the tournament unless there's a prize to be the chip leader in the tournament, right? The only time it matters to be the chip leader is at the very end of the tournament when you win the tournament. I could be second place the whole tournament as long as I'm chip leader at the very last hand, right? You can't play as confidently if you're not the chip leader. Ideally, you want to be the chip leader at the final table. And you don't really necessarily want to, if historic results would show, right? But day one chip leader probably seldomly wins the tournament. They probably do some percent. I'd say probably less than 1% of the time. So if you're new to poker, in this scenario, there's a potential flush draw, and I have an open-ended straight, right? So, sure, technically I have 8 outs, but 2 of those outs are hearts, so I can't safely count those 2 outs, right? Because the flush beats a straight. So, it's not advantageous to chase your open-ended straight draw when there's a flush draw. Because even if I hit it on the river, there's a potential flush now. So I could lose everything, right? So you save yourself a lot of money doing that. So I missed the straight. What did he have? I didn't really see. So 10, so 3 of a kind. So I would have lost it all, basically, if I would have called the flop, right? And if you're a new player, you're going to be like, wow, I got a potential straight. And you're going to go for it sometimes. Because if they bet on the flop, they're likely to bet again on the turn. Then they're likely to bet again on the river sometimes. Not all the time, but a certain percentage of the time. Right? So if you call on the flop, a certain you almost always have to call on the river, or assume there's going to be a bet to call on the river, by the river or the turn, right? And not only that, they usually increase the size of the bet. So if they're betting 200 on the flop, don't be surprised if they bet 600, 1,000 on the turn. So now, are you prepared to call that much? So if you're not prepared to call that much unless you improve, fold on the flop. So the blinds are getting pretty steep. I have less than 10 big blinds. So I pretty much have to go for it. I don't like it, but I'm gonna go for it. With the snap call, that's not good. 2 callers, it's not likely I'm gonna win. But you never know, they checked. That was nice. So it's approaching the money bubble. So if you're new to tournament poker, there is no money bubble because it's not a bounty tournament. So pretty much I think just ends in the money. But if you're in a tournament where there's a money bubble, you could pay attention to it by going down. So 68, there's 191 and 189 people. So we're on the money bubble. Next 2 people out, and then it's in the play money. So you could win a couple easy pots sometimes if you're the chip leader, or as long as you're not the lowest chip table guy, right? But even the lowest guy, this guy right here, your short stack strategy most of the time is push or fold, right? I try to generally call and see the flop and then jam on the flop if I'm extremely short stack. Sometimes I go all in, but usually the flop I go all in if I can't see another hand. Basically, if I could afford to see another hand, because it may not materialize, right? You could have a strong hand and it could come up short, especially a hand like Ace King, right? So I might want to see the flop. If I had 1,200 chips, I might want to see the flop for cheap and then evaluate my situation, whether a jam, if I have a good hand, or a call, if they bet, depending on my position, etc. Because you want to jam when you're likely to get a call, when you're likely to be ahead, right? Until the river. The river didn't disappoint me. So in tournaments where they're sitting out in big blind, sometimes you could steal the pot based on, the big blind guy's not going to resist unless he comes back, right? So sometimes you could win those pots. So when the situation presents itself, you want to fight for those pots sometimes. Like in that scenario, I would have made the exact same play if I had 7-5. Because big blind was sitting out. So out of the three potential players, I know one of them's going to fold 100% of the time unless he comes back, right? So sometimes there's two players like sitting out and they're sitting side by side, right? So then both small blind and big blind are going to be sitting out. They're going to fold, right? So you got a couple easy folds, and then it's what you can't do it every time. Like it wouldn't work for me now that I'm mentioning it in the future every time. But if I'm random enough at it, it's going to work every time I'm random at it, right? If I do it 100% of the time, anybody that watches the video would be suspicious of my raise when both people are sitting out, right? But if the poker app would have to be complicit, basically, to make you sit at the same fucking table as me, most likely. Unless we ended up at the same table in a tournament just by chance, deep in the tournament, right? There is the slight possibility that we could be randomly at the same table, but it's remote. But that being said, I did play on this Real Money app where you could change your name. I loved it. Loved it. Because I can make a video, be like, yeah, do this, that, and that, change my name, and then you should know that you're playing against me again. But my poker app in the future is gonna basically good players that are consistent over a period of time are gonna get real sponsorships, real money to play poker, right? Like subsidized, right? Like a wage. Dependent on how, if it's a worldwide app, like ideally it's gonna be a worldwide app. So there's billions, like say 1 billion players potentially, and so there's going to be a certain percentage that could get like say $100,000 a year just playing this fucking app in sponsorships, or even more, depending on the market, right? Whatever's feasible. As long as the business makes money, because like I would want to reward talent and cultivate it basically, but nothing would be guaranteed. Nothing would be guaranteed. It'd be performance based. It's like you maintain this league, you maintain your performance, then you have it, right? Because in this Real Money app that I played, or they had league rankings, and I became professional 4 times, right? But you could lose the ranking. So I love that. It sucks that you could lose the ranking in one way, but if you want to grow as a player and become complacent, it's awesome because it forces you to continually try to be better. Because if I reached professional and that was it. I could never be demoted. Then it would be like, I'm a fucking pro. It could go to my head, and I might not be as hungry. I might be more complacent than if I have to strive to be a pro every week. So I would have to talk to an accountant for the poker app, but to see what, it all depends on the poker economy within the app, right? To see how advantageous it is. So, like, just say there were the highest ranking players. If you were, it might be, say, a weekly league, but if you're within the top 10 consistently for, like, say, 6 months, then you would start, or maybe even after a month, right? If there's millions of players and you're the top 10 or the top 25 out of like millions of players, right? I'd want to compensate you, like, as long as you showed some consistent performance, right? If it's 1 week you're ranked first in the world, and then the next week you're not even in the fucking league anymore, then I can't give you a sponsorship. But talent should always shine, right? The cream rises to the top. So without cheating, because in the future, this app, like, cheating won't be possible. And it wouldn't be advantageous to cheat because I'm going to own all the casinos and I'm never going to give them up. Never, right? Casinos make too much money, but I'm going to make them a square game so that they're rigged, but at the same time educate you, right? It's like, because I'm also going to have a business where you're going to have a computer in your head, so most people are going to want that, right? So you're going to have an AI coach that's going to be like, for me, it'd be like, okay, Chris, you're approaching 4.5 hours. Statistically, your past 10 performances, you underperform after this amount of time. You walk away a profitable player if you walk away within the next 10 minutes, statistically. Right? So then you would have to ignore this advice from artificial intelligence that knows your past performance. It's your AI coach, it's your buddy, it's your teammate. But we're human, right? So sometimes we're going to say, fuck it, let it roll. Right? But it'd be your coach, so it would always advise you on what to do. So in that scenario, now it's a coach, right? So it needs to discipline you a bit if you lose and console you, right? Like, it needs to educate you. Like, not so much, right? But it's your AI coach. You can't demean you or whatnot, but it needs to be like, I told you so. I told you so. You walked away a loser, and you could have avoided it if you listened to my advice, right? Because it's your AI coach. It has the best interest for you in mind, right? So whether you're playing slots or whatever, it could be like, Julie, you walk away a winner now every time in the past when you make this decision. Because at the casino, right, they want you to remember, I'm going to own all the casinos, right? So so they won't be publicly traded. They won't be on the stock market, because if it's on the stock market, then my stockholders are going to force me to try to maximize profit. But I don't want to maximize profit. I'm going to be able to make money so many different ways that I don't need to gouge people, right? I want them to have a good experience, right? Because gambling's entertainment, right? But if you play poker or blackjack, particularly, there's skill games that are beatable. Blackjack's not as beatable as poker, because in poker you're competing against players, not the house. Officially. Unofficially, the dealer and the house, everybody is so corrupt, right? It's filthy. But unofficially, you're not competing against the house in poker. You're competing against the players, and the house gets a rake of your every half hour. You pay them a certain amount just for the privilege of putting the game together, right? So that's why I play poker. I like blackjack too because there is math, and I'm smart enough that they would probably catch on now, especially that I'm saying it. But I'm smart enough that I could come up with a strategy to count cards in my head and do it all myself, and know when it's advantageous, when there's when high cards are likely to come, bust cards for the dealer are likely to come, and then increase my bets randomly, not suspiciously, but I'm smart enough to do it without cheating, just using my brain. I'm just that good at math. Playing this card game, we called it Red Black. We're drinking, where it's like, okay, the first card's red, second card's red, black, 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 right? So then it's your turn. It's like red, red, black, 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 right? I did the whole deck, memorized the whole deck as I progressively got drunk. All 52 cards. It was like red, 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 black, 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 red, black, 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 red, red, red. The whole fucking deck. All 52 cards, and I must have drank like 6-8 beer. But back to the poker game. Let's see if I could... See, there's two people sitting out now. Here's a situation where I'm likely to play if nobody bets on my turn. This guy's disconnected, so he's likely to fold. No, he's back now, so he might not. This guy raised, kind of rained on my parade. And it would have been a little risky with this guy having so many chips. And he called, so it wouldn't have worked. It would have had to been a multi-street bluff. And he had E6, so I would have... Most likely wouldn't have been able to fold. He might have folded with the potential flush draw on the river. If he's a good opponent. And I pressured him right. He might have been able to... I might have been able to make him fold. A bad opponent never folds ace high. Or top pair. A bad opponent never folds top pair. You could crush them with it every single time. It all depends on the board, right? If there's a potential flush, there could be a flush. If there's a paired board, there could be a four of a kind or a full house. In every board, they could have a set. So there was one of the few boards where there was no potential straight or flush. So you would have been able to play your top pair more confidently that round, like that particular board, than you would have been able to when there's a potential straight or flush. Because when that particular board, the worst case scenario you're going to run into is a set or two pair. So you can't play your top pair 100% confidently, but you might be able to play it 70% confidently. If you bet, assume you're going to lose with top pair sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. Because sometimes even making a pair is hard in poker. So making two pairs is even harder sometimes. So making a three of a kind is even harder than that sometimes. Making a straight is even harder than that sometimes. Making a flush might take days sometimes, it seems. Making a full house seems impossible sometimes. Four of a kind, unfucking likely sometimes. Straight flush and royal flush, some people might go their entire life and never hit a royal flush. Because they don't play enough hands. Because I think some like the odds of a straight flush are 1 in 27,000. And the odds of a royal flush are something like 1 in 650,000 or something like that. Let's Google search it and see how close I was. So the mic, you must have heard through the microphone. I said, what are the odds of hitting a straight flush in poker? But why would it say industry? What are the odds of industry flush in poker? They're trying to skew my Google search results because I'm going to subpoena Google at one point to see how many people are covertly listening to my thoughts and make a similar Google search in the past. So they're trying to skew my results. Not street flush. Here we go. Here's Texas Hold'em. Oh, they tell you a percentage. This translates in. Okay, so it's 3,590 to 1. Texas Hold'em. $650.
According to Wikipedia, the royal flush is a case of the straight flush. It can be formed 4 ways, giving it a probability of 0.000154% and odds of 649,739 to 1.
So I'm surprised the straight flush is only 3,900. I thought I read somewhere that it was 27,000. And I was pretty bang on with this 650,000, right? It was 649,000. And I've had 4 royal flushes in my life. On apps where it's hard to see royal flushes, where I don't see them that often. Well, I guess one app was pretty suspicious because I did have a royal flush, a straight flush, and a 4 of a kind in one day. So that was suspicious. So one of the royal flushes and straight flushes were suspicious. But on PokerStars, you don't see royal flushes that often. So it seems to be more legitimate. Street flush, industry flush. Fucking cocksuckers, man, trying to skew my results. I'm pretty sure I used to do telemarketing support, so I'm pretty sure I speak coherently. They probably do it partially so they could commit dereliction of duty crimes against me. Because I don't believe that. 3,950 to 1. That doesn't seem right. I want them to read it off to me. Not street flush.
According to Upswing Poker, using any combination of your starting hand and the community cards, you have an 0.0279% chance of making a straight flush in Texas Hold'em. This translates as 3,590 to 1 odds against. Playing a solid preflop strategy with suited connectors gives you the best chance of making a straight flush.
Yeah, that's crazy. Here, flop and a straight flush poker. Maybe odds of a straight flush. Let's see what that. See, that's more likely. That's more realistic. So 1 in 72,000. That's way more realistic than 1 in 3,500. Whatever the fuck that poor reputation website was. So if you played on that particular app, whatever they said it was, you probably would be hitting straight flushes all the fucking time because their programming sucks. So I didn't quite see you. It was something like 72,000. But, so I would say I had 20 straight flushes times 72,000, say. So I'm underperforming. Because I should have had... Because I figure I played probably 3 million hands. So I've had half the straight flushes that mathematically I'm supposed to have. Whereas, like, let's see what that one company they have. I can't believe they're even fucking serious. 1 in 4,000. Four of a kind has to be lower odds, but that's probably the odds for a 4 of a kind. So, 20 straight flushes. Well, I guess I played 3 million hands, so 3 million hands divided by 3,590. So I should have had 835 straight flushes by that company's numbers, their math. And I've had 20. But with the real math, I should have had about 40. One in 3,000. That's why I guess you always have to verify your information. So I guess in Google, from now on, when I Google search, I'm never just going to go to the first source. I'm going to confirm. Especially if it's mathematical or if it's scientifically important. I'm going to try to double verify that information. If I have time to double verify it, right? Because if people are watching this and watch all my videos, they might respect my play and they might value my opinion, and they see me Google search it, so they would have assumed that those are the real fucking odds, and then they would be disappointed in the future because they're not the real odds. So that being said, within the last month, in one of my videos, say probably Chris MeyerDiggins 110, 111 maybe, or something like that anyway, say about a month ago. It's what is it? It's after midnight, so now it's July 10th. Nice. So one of my videos, I put a guy on a straight flush, right? So now, after seeing the numbers, it's 1 in 72,000. So the odds of me facing this straight flush as an opponent are probably really low. So for me to accurately put them on the straight flush without cheating and call when I had the ace high flush only because I had to put them on the straight flush to try to get sponsorships, endorsements, and donations. So I called the $2 bet or whatever it was. It was a real money table. And I called saying that he had the king of clubs, and he had the king of clubs. He could have the 9 of clubs for the low end of the straight flush. He could have had a lower flush. He could have had 2 pair. He could have had a set. He could have had nothing. And I put him on the king of clubs. Like that play alone, I should have got sponsorships. That play alone should have guaranteed that I should have got sponsorships. I haven't won a hand. I was gonna raise, but it would have made me want to go all in, so I probably would have lost this hand here. So good thing I fold. Good. Because it was likely a loser. But I would have raised because it was the best hand that I had in a while, but I'm glad I did. And that's how I know the poker software is rigged as well, because on PokerStars, in my videos, I'm openly saying, oh, when I'm in short stack, I do this or do that. And then, flash forward a couple videos later, or even that video, then I'm short stacked, and then that situation happens where I get punished by the app. And it's like, well, how could you say it's not rigged when he's like in, say, Chris MeyerDiggins Poker, whatever video, I do this in short-handed poker video situations, short-handed poker situations, and then every time that happens afterwards, I lose that suspiciously when I had a previous winning record before I mentioned it online. And it would be a situation that the app controls. Because the app controls the hands that the people get in the cards, right? I don't control that. The app controls that. It's like, I had this, there's this pretty cool trick. I wish I had the video of it. I did film it, and I tried to get on a show called People Are Awesome. Nice call. Queen 7. Nice call, though. It was kind of a weak attempt. But anyways, I had this trip, or this trick where I would kick the hat up, kick it down. No, what was it? I kicked it down, then I kicked it up, and then it would flip in the air, and I would catch it on my head. So I would do a double kick, and it was about 6 feet high, and it would land on my head. Is it gonna hold up? Of course not. That was brutal. But I guess I don't want to end this poker video right now, so I guess I'll keep on playing something else. I guess there's a 50K tournament I could play. Or there's a new 15K tournament I'll play. So to me, it was the coolest trick that I could do, right? It took me 100 tries at least to get this trick down, because once I kicked the hat up, it was no longer in my control. I couldn't influence anymore because it was airborne, right? So I had to judge the rotation of the hat in the air, balance my body underneath it, so it would land precisely on my head without falling off, right? So it was a really cool trick. And so I emailed People Are Awesome, and it never even made it on. That's how I know I'm cock blocked in life. I had a phone that I couldn't even install Tinder on. And it was an Android phone, so it's not like it was an old phone. It was an older phone, like a couple years old, but not old enough where it couldn't have Tinder on it. Because how many system requirements does Tinder have? You look at pictures, you swipe left or right. And I had another phone where, because I wasn't always restricted, I had another phone. Here we go, I'll play heads up. Where I was on a trip anyways, and I could put Tinder on the phone at this point in time. And I was in Alliston, Ontario. So there was maybe 30,000 people there. I'll just show you a picture of what I looked like then. So I looked something like this. Or maybe like that, right? So I was a very good looking guy, right? So anyways, in Alliston, Ontario, I go on Tinder, and within a minute, I had 50 to 100 responses. 50 to 100 responses, like it was nothing, right? But I was on a trip. I was with my family. It was just a curiosity. I just wanted to see. And there was a girl that I did want to kind of become a long distance friendship with, and maybe something romantically could have happened down the line. But that particular trip, I was just for male ego. I wanted to see. That part wasn't really male ego. But then, just for male ego, I'm like, okay, wow. So 50 to 100 women in Alliston, a city of 30,000 people, within a minute, the phone was blowing up almost, right? It was like ding, 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 or whatever, right? Whatever noise they make. There were so many responses. And so Toronto, which is 45 minutes away from there, has 5 million people. So just for my ego, I wanted to see how many people in Toronto would show up and select me, basically. Choose me as a match, swipe right or whatever it is, or left. Whatever the one is when you like the people. And there might have been a couple. There might have been 3 or 4 in a city with 5 million people. So that's how they block me in life. It was so fucking unbelievable. I was a guy. I used to get catcalled, sometimes by guys, right? And my ass must have got grabbed probably 20 times at the bar, being a guy. And I never grabbed a girl's ass at the bar. Never once. I might have grinded with the girl at the bar. So what table can I play on? I want to play for 50k. Too bad there wasn't a heads up game. So needless to say, I've been trying to privatize, well, I started a petition over a year ago now, and but I've been advocating against the government for the last 6 years. And basically, my ex-wife, I told her my philosophy, and that we were most likely being surveilled, and while we were having sex, and she seemed to enjoy it. So I left her. Our 13-year relationship, I left her just like that. Like it never even fucking happened. So that being said, I wouldn't want to have a relationship with a woman that would A, want to be surveilled and watched and violated, and B, I wouldn't want her to be violated by these electronic rapists, right? Because there would be electronic women that would be able to feel me having sex with this particular woman, right? So I wouldn't like that. If I'm into her emotionally, then it would be a private, intimate relationship between two people. It's not me, this person, and then all her friends or her team, right? But with this technology in the future, since there's going to be a demand for it, and they're telling me that it should live forever, right? So if you live forever, you kind of need to be able to provide and survive forever, right? So I'm going to need to make money certain ways, right? So one of the ways that I'm going to make money is once this technology is legal, because I'm going to be having surrogate kids all the time, right, for mankind, become a sperm donor, basically. And for a fee. For a fee, sometimes. Well, it's always going to be for a fee. Because I have to eat, and I'm going to be giving up my family's evolutionary greatness, making a competitive advantage against strangers, right? Some random stranger is going to end up with my evolutionary genes that is going to be competing against my grandson, my great grandson, etc., right? My granddaughter, etc. So, in order for me to give up this, because it's a moral dilemma, right? Because the only reason why I'm going to end up sharing is because I think it's the most selfless thing that I could possibly do, and I believe the soul exists, and I can prove it with scientific instrumentation. But I believe the soul exists, and God is going to reward me for sharing my evolutionary DNA with mankind, strangers, good, wholesome people, just because they're good, wholesome people, but for a fee, right? There's going to be countries are going to be paying the fee, not necessarily the individual. The moms aren't going to be paying the fee all the time. Possibly, it all depends on the scenario, right? But it's probably going to be in order for me to share my evolutionary DNA with country A, they're going to have to give me a certain percentage of their gross national product per year, say 1%, 2%, whatever. I would have to talk to an economist, an accountant, and a lawyer in each country, right, to see but it'd be the same for every country. There'd be no impartiality to it, basically. I'd be impartial, basically. The And if I did charge women a fee or couples a fee, it'd be based on a proportion of their disposable income. So the rich are helping to pay for the poor to fly to wherever the fuck I am on the planet to have these surrogate babies, right? So the strategy is always going to get the wealthier to help offset the cost for the poor people. So poor people are included in this, right? Like as long as you're not lazy, right? Like if you're in a first world country like Canada and you're on welfare and you've never handed out resume in your fucking life, then you're just lazy. You should be on welfare, and I'm not going to spend money to pay for you to live forever and then just to have to pay for you to survive forever. That doesn't make sense economically. You could be a good person, but you're lazy, right? And being the leader of the world, I got to think of the team, the strength of the team, and I don't need lazy people on the team. I need overachievers on the team. So other than that, right, as long as you're willing to work, right, because with this situation, like, people listening to my thoughts and being the leader of the world, I'm never going to have a day off for the rest of my existence. There's no, until Evolution 3 guy, he's going to be smarter than I am, significantly, and at that point, I might be able to retire, but that's in 1 to 2 million years. So that means I'm never going to get a day off in 1 to 2 million years in my entire life. I might get a few seconds a minute or a few minutes an hour, but never a complete day off in my life when it all happens in my brain. So that being said, if people want to live forever, you kind of have to work forever or become rich to live forever, to finance you to live forever, basically. Which is possible. There's going to be strategies. Basically, if people play their cards right, you might have to work for your typical 40, 50 years. And then if you're rich and finance it, and as long as you don't live an extravagant lifestyle, then you might be able to coast indefinitely and never have to work another day in your life. And like that's playing the stock market and invest in long term. And it's a good thing I hit the king on the river. So it's invest in the stock market, and you got to be able to create money when you sleep, right? You got to be able to make money when you sleep if you want to live forever and not work. That's the goal. You need to have money coming in so many different ways possible that if one of them fails, like a spoke, like a wheel, basically, there's many spokes on the wheel, right? So you want to be able to afford to lose a few spokes without compromising the integrity of the wheel, your financial freedom, right? So if the stock market goes to shit, it's like, well, I got some gold, I got some art, I got some property. Like, because even $1 billion in 2024, right? If you're a billionaire, if you have $1 billion, sure, you have a lot of money. You have $1,000 million, right? You have a lot of money. But if you buy $100 million house or a $200 million house, you get your private jet, you get that island, you get that yacht. Next thing you know, you got $75 million left, bro. Which isn't that much. It's still an extraordinary amount of money, but if you're buying the $200 million house, the private planes and the yachts, you have an extravagant lifestyle. So unless you're able to replenish that money consistently, you're gonna go broke inevitably. It's just a matter of time, right? It could be a change in the industry, a new technology. Like technology can make your industry obsolete. The next thing you know, you're broke. You're broke. You no longer have your cash cow. That is it. You're done, right? And it happens all the time, right? Like in the 90s, there was VHS and Betamax. So the industry decided on VHS, but there was a certain percentage of people in an entire country, an entire industry that was betting on Betamax and VHS won. So now just say if you were a billionaire, you invested heavily in Betamax and you lost, you could be homeless. You could be crippled. You could be financially ruined. So that being said, if you buy your property, you buy your house, and you live a modest lifestyle, if you have, who knows what it would be, whatever the number is, like just say it might be $5 million cash. If you had $5 million cash, let's Google search now. Right after this. So I'm just gonna do for Canada since I'm in Canada since.
According to LendEDU, $1 million deposit with the average 0.45% APY would generate $4,510.08 of interest after 1 year. If left to compound daily for 10 years, it would generate $46,027.51.
So that being said, ideally, you would need, who knows how much you would need, but if you had $10 million cash, and you had your house paid for, and you live frugally, if you bought a car and you financed it, $10 million cash, that would give you $45,000 a year to live off of for food. And you remember your home's paid for. All you would have is property tax and entertainment, food, and that's about it. Traveling, right? And then in that scenario, most likely your kids or your grandkids, you'd be trying to help them out. But so with $10 million, you could that's never touching the $10 million. So you'd always have that principal, right? That's just living strictly off the interest. So you would have to kind of not do anything for the first year, and then after the first year, you could collect the $45,000, right? So that being said, if it was $1 billion, what was that? 10 million. So that's 100 times that. So if you had $1 billion in that scenario, and you just lived off the interest, that would be something like what's 100 times 45,000? So what's that? 450. Yeah, that'd be $4.5 million that you could live off of a year. So as long as, like, if you're somebody like Warren Buffett that lives in a modest home, say something that's worth $1 million nowadays, and or say $2 million, so the property tax might be $8,000 a year. That would still give you $4.5 million to live comfortably, really comfortably, forever, right? You'd be able to live off that forever. But that being said, in 18 years, like, I'm gonna have to develop a system in the future with economists to eliminate inflation. But they say inflation doubles basically every 18 years, they say on average. So that means your $4.5 million in 18 years is really only going to be equivalent to $2.25 million in current money, not future money, right? So in that scenario, right, if I had $4.5 million today, in 18 years, that $4.5 million then would only be equivalent. I'm only able to buy the same amount of things that in 2024 I could only buy with $2.25 million. So you lose half your purchasing power, basically. So that's why the next big thing, like COVID or something like that, it should be more predictable. But inflation was pretty obvious, right? So the governments were handing out a bunch of money and prices weren't going up, right? So at that point, if you had a lot of savings, right, eventually prices were going to go up, guaranteed. So you'd want to make that big ticket item purchase, right? you'd want to maximize your value, right? Because inflation basically doubled, right? So in Canada, so if you had $50,000 in the bank from 4 years ago, right? You could get a hell of a lot more for $50,000 4 years ago than you can nowadays. You could get half as much. It's like you have $25,000 because of inflation. So that being said, if ever there is a scenario where a recession and inflation is likely and you have your savings, it might be a good time to go buy that brand new car or buy that new house. Big ticket items, right? Because if you would have done this in 2020, property, like with COVID, I'm sure all throughout the world, this, like in Canada, it's happened for sure. But all throughout the world, most likely, housing property has went up considerably because in Canada, what happened was in Ontario, particularly Toronto, during COVID, everybody could work from home, right? So now all of a sudden, all these people that lived in Toronto that were commuting or whatever, they said, fuck Toronto, I'm going to go live in my small town that I came from. So then they start driving up the property value in all these small towns because they're able to work in Toronto still, but live in Sault Ste. Marie, Blind River, small town, nowhere, right? And so they're driving up the property value in every market, basically, right? And then at the same time, the Canadian government's possibly increasing immigration, right? So then it's keeping the property value in Toronto probably high, right? Because if not, I don't know what the numbers are, but there was probably, say, 25 to 100,000, maybe not that many, possibly homeowners that left Toronto and bought property remotely, working from home. I'm going to Google search it right now. More than 400,000 people. So I ballparked it, right? So that was guaranteed to happen. Oh, that's Ontarians. So maybe 25% of them might be in Toronto because you could work from home, right? Like if I was in, it all depends, right? I was born in Toronto, lived in a small city, so I was ready to go back to the big city. But if I was 46 and I lived in Toronto my whole life, I might be at the point where it depends on my social life, right? But if it's like it is now, where I'm basically, I moved to a city basically to play poker, right? So I moved to a city where I didn't know a single person, right? So I don't go out of my way to meet friends either, right? So maybe if I lived in a big city, I might have already seen and done it all that I was interested in, and I might have been more likely to settle down in a small town that I could work from home in my Toronto job and then start my side hustle, my fishing bait job, or whatever it was, a hiking job that I always wanted to do, or a lawnmower job that I always wanted to do, and go from there, right? Because why would you, right? Like, because Toronto's great, like for restaurants, culture, but if you don't do that stuff, why the fuck are you in a city where it takes so long? Because any big city's like this, not just Toronto. But to get to one end to the other, it takes like an hour and a half. Like if I drive, like I used to live in Sault Ste. Marie, so it's 714 kilometers to Toronto, downtown Toronto. And so it's a 7 hour drive, basically. Say an 8 hour drive with breaks. A little bit more than 8 hour drive with breaks. to get you to the Toronto. But then once you're in the surface streets, to get downtown Toronto on a Friday or during rush hour takes 45 minutes to an hour. Like just to get downtown. Like, so if you're going to a concert or the airport, give yourself plenty of time to get through all the stoplights and traffic right in the city. Especially if you're not familiar, right? Because if you get lost, next thing you know, that's going to set you back 10 minutes and you might miss your flight, right? So in that scenario, if you could work from home, why wouldn't you move to a small city when you could get end to end in the city in 15 minutes? You could get to the grocery store, you could do whatever you do. You and your husband don't really have much of you don't go out and entertain each other. Don't spend too much on entertainment. You entertain each other at home, right? That's how I was with me and my wife, right? We rarely went out to the bar drinking. And because when you go to the bar drinking, when you're a couple, you're going to spend like at least $100 or close to $100, right? Where you could buy a bottle of wine for $12 and have just as much fun at home. Right? So, that being said, like, if you are a young couple, don't always stay at home and get the bottle of wine. Go out for the life experience of being young, right? Have some fun. Create those memories where you're out doing things that are... Because in hindsight, with my marriage to my ex-wife, sure, I had lots of memories, but the day-to-day in life is kind of one big blur, right? So it's the unique experiences from our relationship that I remember, right? The time that we did this or that. Like one time I had sex with her I had a Dodge Charger and on the hood. It was perfect. I didn't have to stand on my tippy toes or anything. It was the perfect height for me. But I must have had sex with her 3,000 times or a couple thousand times, right? I don't remember every single time, but I remember unique experiences. I was really lucky that way. In our 13-year relationship, she might have said no to me sexually 10 times. I was very lucky. I was probably, must have been the luckiest guy on the planet. Very rarely. She wasn't the best cook, though. So she had that going for her, that she never turned me down sexually, but she didn't care about me or the kids' food. But she spent extra effort on her own food. She would have a separate meal. Granted, she did most of the cooking, so I couldn't complain, right? But she would cook me and the kids shitty food, and then she would eat her zucchini or whatever it was, her fancy girl food, right? It wasn't special or cost money, but to me it was fancy because I took like a half hour to cook, right? Where our stuff might go in the microwave. Or she's never gonna watch this, but even if she does, fuck her. I, I, she is the mother of my kids, so I do wish her the best for her wholesomely good inherent deeds. But yeah, one thing that irked me was I had this job. I worked 12 hour shifts, right? So every time you worked, that was your whole day basically. You could have a couple hours before and after work, but your whole day was working basically. But it gave me 4 to 5 days off in a row. So I'd work 14, 15 days a month instead of like 20 days like you do in most jobs. Right. So I had extra days off per month. So it was phenomenal. I loved it. I wish I was single and had that job. It would have been great. I would have not a different life, but I would have an extension of my life in a different city. Because the job, it paid me enough money that I could fly. I could afford to fly. If I was single and had no kids, it paid me enough that I could afford to fly at least once every 2 months somewhere. I could spend, I could blow $1,000 like nothing every 2 months. As long as I was frugal with my entertainment for the rest of the time. So I like the Clearwater, Tampa Bay area, right? So I would have, if I could have afforded to buy a house, which I almost did, right? And if I would have bought this fourplex, I would have had money to be able to buy property in Daytona Beach. Because at the time it was something like I could have bought a 50 or 2,500 square foot home, so a very big home, for some like 50,000 American. And at the time, the Canadian dollar was more, right? So it would have cost me maybe $43,000 American, and I could buy a house in Daytona Beach, and I could rent it out to Canadians all year long, except for when I wanted to go down, right? So I would have certainly bought some property in the States at that point because the Canadian dollar was so much higher. The flip side of the coin is right now American dollar is higher, right? And if you're one of those Americans that might leave the country, if Trump leaves, your $1 million American is worth $1.3 million Canadian, right? And culturally, we're more similar to you than Mexico would be, unless you're Spanish. But Canadians and Americans, particularly Northern Americans, we're into hockey. You're into hockey. A lot of us watch football. You know, like, we're not quite as into guns as you are because legally it's not in our Constitution, right? We don't have the right to bear arms in our Constitution. But if we did, we'd be right into that. We're into NASCAR. We're into baseball. Baseball, football, basketball, soccer are our four major sports, just like Americans. Poker's legal in Ontario. So if you're into poker, cannabis is legal in Canada. We have free public health care, which is huge. I watched a show. I forget it might have been Born for Columbine. Maybe not. That might not be it. But I forget the name of the director. But he did direct Born for Columbine. So I'll try to find out his name. Michael Moore. What other Fahrenheit 9/11? Maybe it's that one. Fahrenheit 9/11. But basically, in one of his documentaries, he shows how an American had to decide whether to reattach their thumb or their finger because they didn't have enough fucking money. And it's like, from a country's perspective, why the fuck would you not want to make the guy's thumb be reattached so he could work again? How is he going to pick up a fucking tool? how's he ever going to do a job if he doesn't have a fucking thumb? Right? That's not a problem when you're in Canada. I'd be going to the hospital with my thumb and my finger, and as long as they could reattach it, within a few weeks, I'm back to fucking normal working my job. Like my thumb and finger never even happened. But in a private healthcare system, that's what it comes down to. Like your health coverage. Are you covered for that type of treatment? So that's absurd. I'd rather pay more taxes, because in Canada we have slightly more taxes than the States. Ontario, our tax is 13%, right? But I never have to worry about going to the hospital and slightly, I guess there is some hospital fees, but I never have to worry about going to the hospital and getting a 20, 40, 60, 80, $100,000 medical bill. It being a Canadian. Not once in my life am I ever going to have to, like maybe unless they change the law, but am I ever going to go to the hospital where all of a sudden I have to take a second mortgage out on my house? I have to cash in my RIA or your 401ks or whatever the fuck you guys have. Never once in my life will I have to do that, most likely. Right, so that's the only thing I don't like about America is that I'd rather, if I was American, I'd rather pay slightly more taxes and never have to worry about healthcare. And another thing that Canada is better than America about is toll roads. We don't have toll roads like you guys do. Very rarely. You could drive coast to coast, and all you have to pay for is your gas and food along the way and lodging along the way. We're in the States, all of a sudden you're driving and you have to pay tolls. And some of these tolls, there's no people. So it's like, how the fuck do I pay you? I might not have enough change. It's like, I'm going here. It doesn't tell me that I need $17 in change to get where I'm fucking going. I'm a tourist. How the fuck am I supposed to know this? Right? My GPS is telling me to take this way, so I guess you could choose no tolls. But then it's going to take you 1,000 kilometers out of your way to save $1.25, right? Or whatever it is. But some states, it's like $17. You might drive through the state for like 45 minutes and it costs you $17 to drive through the states. Through that particular state. Right? Which is crazy. To live in New Jersey, to go right across the river in Manhattan, there and back, it probably cost you at least $10 to $12 nowadays in 2024. So that means, in this scenario, you're broke, you're looking for a job, and you're trying to get a job, your interviews in Manhattan, you have to pay 15 fucking bucks just to get in that state and out of that state, possibly pay for parking just to get a fucking interview. Right? So the Port Authority's making money rather than Manhattan making money. Or New Jersey making the money in that scenario. Right? So while I was there, because I went to New York a couple times, and while I was there, one time I stayed in New Jersey, so I Googled, they since closed this loophole because of me, and but I was able to go through something like the Lincoln Tunnel to get into Manhattan for free, but if I drove down by the Statue of Liberty, I could get out of Manhattan for free. So I got in and out of Manhattan without paying a cent. And they closed that loophole. But I had the time, right? It took me I had to go through traffic, so it took me a half hour, right? So if you're doing this every day, you're not going to drive out of your way a half hour. Well, I guess to save 15 bucks, it would be worthwhile. Only if you made $30 or more, right? An hour. If you make $15 an hour and it takes you a half hour, you're costing yourself time. Because that half hour you're spending to drive would be wasted, basically, because you would have to do it both ways. So that'd be an extra hour a day to save $15, so you'd be kind of breaking even. But since I was a tourist and it was a one of a kind opportunity, it was like I didn't mind driving all the way down because I wanted to see all of Manhattan anyways. The next time I go there, I'm gonna catch the subway and I want to see it all. I want to see Queens, Bronx, Brooklyn, Long Island, Staten Island, I think, and then New Jersey, right? See all about it. And unfortunately, it didn't work out here, but I've been looking for a job for like over a year in 3 cities, and I haven't. But so I moved down last October, and so I've been looking for a job. So if I wasn't restricted, I most likely would have had a car by now, and so I would have been making road trips occasionally to New York City's not that far from me. Philadelphia's not that far. Baltimore, Washington, Boston. So I'd be making road trips there. I'd be going to Montreal, the poker room in Montreal. I'd be going on lots of road trips. Ideally, I love poker, right? So ideally, I would have met a buddy at the casino, a consistent player that always plays, a regular player that I would come to know, and we'd form a friendship, talk about poker, but then go catch a game, go catch the Yankees play in New York City sometimes, like go for weekend trips, buddy trip somewhere, maybe go to Atlantic City and play Texas Hold'em in Atlantic City or something, right? And then if our friendship develops, eventually go fly to Vegas for a poker trip, or you know what I mean? Or if it was a woman, right? If maybe it could have turned into a romantic thing, right? If we both love poker, we're gonna always have that to talk about, and then what other common interests we have. For me, if I was to get into a relationship with the next relationship I get in with a woman is I'm gonna watch some of her girly shows as long as she wants me to. If she wants alone privacy time, then I'm gonna give her that alone privacy time. But if she wants to, if she's into, because my ex-wife was into science fiction shows, and I'm a science realist person. I don't like fantasy science. I like realistic science, like verbatim science, like realistic. Like when I see a guy fall in the movies and it doesn't make sense to me, the movie kind of loses credibility to me. If he falls like 100 feet and he survives, like in the movie, and doesn't die, then the movie kind of loses respect for me because it's not authentic. I want science movies. I like them more authentic. But that being said, if I could do my relationship over with my ex-wife again, I would have spent. I would have watched those the science fiction shows with her. I would have grown to love it with her, just to bond with her during those. So we could have inside jokes, because in these shows there's gonna be some clever dialogue, and we'd be able to have these inside jokes, and it'd be bonding with her, right? Because especially once you have kids, you kind of need to still bond with a couple, right? Because at first, your kids are babies, so they're so dependent on you that they dominate your relationship. So you need to have those date nights, and especially the longer you've been in a relationship, right? You need to dress up. Both of you dress up, get up. Depending on how old your kids are. If they're young, wait till your kids are old enough that the grandparents don't mind watching them overnight, and then get a hotel in your city, and then get some, if you drink alcohol, get some alcohol and just have a couple's night out. Maybe go to a restaurant and have some fun. Rediscover each other's bodies, basically. seduce each other like it's the first time. And like I wrote a song called Alone at Last, so that's what the song basically was meant for. It's like you've been working 40 hours all week, you don't really, because there was times when I was married with my wife, we had opposite shifts, so I might see her 15 minutes a day, right? So you're kind of trying to sum up your whole day in 15 minutes, right? So it's not the ideal situation, but you got to do it. You got to do it, right? Does he have it? I don't think he has the ace. I'm gonna. So yeah, I suggest that if you're in a long-term relationship, it's this quality time, the couple time, alone time, and same thing for her. I guess for her, my ex-wife in that scenario, for her to grow as a couple, she may have wanted to engage in some of the things that I wanted to do, even if she didn't like it. Like if I was a fisherman, she may want to go on a couple fishing trips with me if I wanted her to. But if it was a guy thing that me and the guys do, right, then respect my boundary and my guy time, right? It's like if I met a girl, like a woman, and she's wearing revealing clothing, I'm not gonna try to change how she dresses, right? But that being said, I guess if she's really conservative and then all of a sudden she caught me in the feels and now she's dressed and scantily clad all the time, then I'm probably not going to invest too much in that relationship. But I want her to be able to express her body at the same time. It'd be one thing if she's dressed and scantily clad for me, but if it's only for other people and never for me, then that would be an issue that I would have with her, right? But if it's for me as well, then I wouldn't give a flying fuck whatsoever, right? Because I'd want her to be secure with her sexuality, and I would trust her, right? Until there was a situation where trust was lost, and then trust is lost at that point. Hard to recover once people lose trust, right? It's like broken glass. You could glue it back together, but it's never quite the same. So that being said, if you meet a girl and she's wearing a mini skirt, and now 2 months later you're into her, and you can't be saying, "Okay, go buy new clothes," because she hooked you wearing that mini skirt. Remember that. And you could tell basically. I'm pretty good at telling how old a woman is, like from behind, if based on how she dresses, the type of clothing that women wear, just from observing, right? Because I'm attracted to women, right? So I notice beautiful women, and they hack my eyes, right? So they make me look at their ass or their features. Sometimes, like if I'm like in my mind, if I'm thinking about these electronic violators, I'm talking about their double chin or something like that. Guaranteed, there's going to be somebody that makes me look at their double chin. And it's like, I don't care if you got a double chin. If you're a good, wholesome person that believe you have private thoughts, I could give a flying fuck. You probably don't like that you have a double chin. And if you're a guy and have a double chin, grow a beard. Double chin gone. Nobody sees it anymore. So not so much for women, right? But that being said, because women can't grow a beard, right? That being said, I love women so much, and I'm going to be the unofficial king of the world, the rich guy. I'm going to develop technology that could specifically target fat areas of people, particularly women, that they don't like. Right? They don't like the flabby arms, so there's going to be, when you eat food, it's going to reduce your flabby arms. I'm going to engineer food with artificial intelligence to make it safe for people. And so it enhances your biology rather than inhibits it. And likewise for men, right? Like the beer gut. Right? Guys end up with a certain type of gut. Well, I guess this is going to be the end of the video. I'm down to 5%, and I missed this hand anyways. Only got 5% of my battery left, so. So the long and short, as long as it's scientifically possible and technically possible, certain foods, right? It depends on how, like, all foods, unhealthy foods are going to have a tax on them, basically. Not that the consumer will ever pay. It's going to be, say, probably 10% of the profit margin. Like if you make cigarettes, your cigarettes cause people to get sick and get cancer and heart disease, right? You could engineer the cigarettes not to do that. You choose not to, so you should compensate some of these medical fees, right? Or if your products make people fat and obese, a certain percentage of your profit margin should offset these medical expenses, right? So that being said, with this profit margin tax, it's going to encourage products to become healthier so they don't have to pay the tax. So it's a win-win situation. It makes products healthier for people. Remember, I'm going to be king of the world, so it's my citizens. But anyway, this is the end of the video. Go to www.change.org/technology. Have a great day.